On the rooftop of Onigashima, under a burning, storm-torn sky, the future Pirate King was already trading blows with the strongest creature in the world. But what if this time, Kaido didn't just knock Luffy out and walk away? What if, in the moment where destiny was supposed to bend, it simply snapped? The moment he crashes his club into Luffy's skull, there is no second chance, no hidden awakening waiting in the dark. Instead of Luffy's rubber body bouncing back, bones shatter, flesh tears, and that familiar grin finally breaks. Kaido doesn't underestimate him and doesn't turn his back, doesn't wait for the drums of liberation. He follows through with one last brutal strike, smashing Luffy's chest and crushing the heartbeat that should have become Joy Boy's rhythm. Luffy's body doesn't rocket back into the fight, it falls. Slowly at first, then faster, tumbling off the edge of the rooftop like discarded wreckage. His conqueror's haki, that wild, defiant aura that once clashed with Kaido's and split the sky, flickers like a dying flame. Then it goes out. Across the entire battlefield, the tremors of will that had been raging above suddenly vanish, leaving a suffocating silence that no one can explain, but everyone feels. Zoro, bleeding and barely conscious, feels his head snap towards the sky without knowing why. Kid and Law pause mid-attack, their instincts screaming that something vital has just been destroyed. Down below, Nami's hands shake, Chopper's scalpel slips, Sanji's cigarette falls from his mouth. For a heartbeat, Wano itself seems to hold its breath. As if the country realizes the man who was supposed to free it has just disappeared from the world. But what if this is where everything ends for Luffy? Just how much darker does the new world become when the man destined to awaken Nika dies before that ability ever stirs? The first sign that this is not just another defeat is the absence of sound. No drums, no laughter, no impossible comeback. Only a corpse falling through the night toward the cold waters below. In canon, this rooftop loss is the trigger for Luffy's ultimate awakening, the moment he becomes something closer to a sun god and turns the battlefield into his playground. In this universe, that awakening never comes. Joy Boy's heartbeat doesn't rise, it stops. And with it, the prophecy of Wano, the hope of Momonosuke and Yamato, Alpha and the Straw Hats' unshakable belief in their captain all face annihilation. If Marineford was the war that ended an era with Whitebeard's death, this is the execution that threatens to end the very idea of freedom on the seas. When the world's strongest creature kills the future Pirate King before he can change the world, does the pirate era die with him, or does something far worse take its place? In this video, that rooftop becomes the place where destiny breaks, and that entire world has to live with the consequences. Killing, Joy Boy, rules of fate, devil fruits, and why. This death matters on the surface. Kaido, killing Luffy on the rooftop looks like the world's strongest creature crushing one more rookie. But here, it's much more than that. This isn't just a captain dying in battle, this is the execution of Joy Boy. The erasure of Nika and the moment fate itself gets punched through the skull. In canon, the rooftop is where destiny finally catches up. The moment he dies and the drums of liberation begin to pound, Luffy's devil fruit reveals its true nature. Not the Gomu Gomu no Mi, but the Hito no Mi, model Nika. Awakening turns his rubber body into a living sun god, warping reality with cartoon logic, spreading a wild, joyful aura across the entire battlefield. Buildings bounce, lightning becomes rope, Kaido's dragon form is manhandled like a toy. Thanks to his new ability, the hopeless war in Onigashima flips in an instant as the strongest creature is forced onto the back foot. But what if that awakening never happens? In this timeline, Kaido's final blow on the rooftop is absolute, no hidden heartbeat restarting in silence. No mysterious dun echoing through the flower capital. His attack hits so hard that even Law's surgical precision cannot retrieve a body in time, and Chopper's medicine is meaningless against a soul that has already left. There is no second round, there is no Gear 5, there is only a corpse at Kaido's feet. That single death tears through every prophecy tied to Wano. Joy Boy's return, the one Toki's words hint at across 800 years, was supposed to coincide with the opening of the borders and the liberation of the country. Momonosuke's rise as shogun, Yamato's faith in the man who would carry Oden's will, the samurai's last stand under a dawn that never comes, All of it quietly leans on Luffy being that joy boy. The will of D is framed as a storm that keeps coming back, a line of people who smile at the moment of death and drag the world into the next era. When the man with the most explosive D on the seas is cut down before fulfilling that role, the tremors go far beyond Wano's sky. The first sign that this devil fruit is bigger than one pirate is the world government's panic. CP0 is ordered to stop Luffy's awakening at all costs, even if it means handing Kaido the win. Just how much does a fruit have to threaten the system for the Gorosei to gamble on the beast pirates? In canon, they fail. In this scenario, they succeed by proxy. Kaido unknowingly does their dirty work, destroying the one ability they fear more than any ancient weapon. The Yonko balance shifts overnight. A future emperor is erased before he can claim the title. And the beast pirates stand as a blunt instrument that accidentally saved the celestial dragons. So, what happens when the chosen liberator dies before the drums can play? Does the world sink into despair under an unbroken Yonko system? Or does that broken destiny twist into something even more dangerous inside Zoro, Sabo, and the rest of those who inherited Luffy's will? The crazy part was that this death doesn't end the story of Joy Boy. It mutates it. And the next shockwave hits Wano first. The exact moment the timeline splits, Kaido's killing blow on the rooftop, and that shockwave hits at one. Single, brutal instant. The rooftop clash where destiny breaks. Canon gives Luffy a miracle here. He pushes Gear 4 to its limit, coating his fist in Advanced Conqueror's Haki. Aldain's trading blows with Kaido as the sky splits and the entire battlefield feels the tremors of their power. The moment he finally starts tagging Kaido clean, the beast pirate captain does what he always does when someone amuses him. He grins. He drinks, he toys with his prey. But what if this is the one time Kaido refuses to play with his food? In this timeline, that last clash of Conqueror's Haki doesn't lead into the mysterious heartbeat of an awakening. It leads into Kaido's decision to execute. The first sign is in his eyes. No drunken wobble, no sadistic smile. Just cold, bored contempt as Luffy's rubber fist slams into his jaw and actually rocks him back. Kaido feels the aura of a joy boy pretender, and instead of getting excited, he gets angry that the prophecy keeps lying to him. He steps in before Luffy can recoil. Kanabo already swinging. It isn't the casual Thunder Bagua from Kuri. This is a named killing move, Tenrin Bagua, a heavenly Thunder Bagua meant to destroy the skull of anyone who stands in his way. Haki erupts off the Iron Club, black and purple lightning ripping through the air as the rooftop wind pressure explodes outward. The impact is sickening. There's no comedic rubber recoil, no wide-eyed gasp. The club crashes straight into Luffy's temple and upper jaw, and the sound it makes is closer to a tree being split than a human being taking a hit. Bone shatters, teeth and blood spray across the tiles. The shockwave blasts loose stones off the edge of Onigashima, and for a heartbeat, even Big Mom stops laughing. Kid's metal arm freezes mid-motion. Law's expression, usually calm even in war, finally breaks as he feels Luffy's life force plummet with his observation Haki. Killer's laughter dies in his throat. Zoro, already barely standing after blocking Hakai, watches the trajectory of Luffy's body and understands instantly, this isn't another Kuri. This isn't a knockout where the idiot captain bounces back later. This is a blow that ends a fight and ends a man. For Kaido, that's the point. Every false joy boy is an insult to the war he has been waging against the world and against his own boredom. He wanted the strongest enemy, the one who could finally give him the death he craves. Instead, he sees yet another dreamer who cannot reach him. Killing Luffy here is his way of spitting on the prophecy and proving that even fate breaks against the world's strongest creature. Luffy's eyes are already empty as his body goes limp and begins to fall, sliding off the shattered rooftop stones toward the dark clouds below Onigashima. There are no drums, no sudden smile, no secret awakening to save him at the last second. Just gravity, silence, and one terrifying question hanging over the battlefield. Who sees the Pirate King's heir fall first? When the sky goes silent, immediate shockwaves across Onigashima. The first sign that something is horribly wrong doesn't come from the rooftop. It comes from the battlefield below, where everything is chaos, fire, and steel. And then, for a heartbeat, it all feels empty. Sanji is mid-air, leg wreathed in flames as he drives a kick straight toward Queen's neck. He's focused, calculating angles, pressing the advantage, but the moment he's about to land the blow, brought his observation. Haki screams, his eyes widen, his body stalls in a way that has nothing to do with exhaustion. Luffy's familiar, reckless aura, the wild rhythm that has been pulsing over Onigashima since the raid began, just vanishes. Not weakened, not distant, gone. Sanji's heel clips Queen's jaw instead of breaking it, and even Queen notices the hesitation. Across the battlefield, Jinbei feels it too. Veterans of war understand when a comrade falls, even when they can't see it. He blocks Who's fang attack, but his gaze shifts upward toward the storm, as if the answer is written in the clouds. There is a hollow pressure in his chest, like the sea itself just lost a current. Jinbei doesn't need confirmation. That absence is louder than any scream. Nami and Usopp are running for their lives, dodging explosions and homies. Nami clutches Zeus, shouting orders, forcing courage into every word. Then a chill runs down her spine, so cold it cuts through the heat of Prometheus's flames. Her knees almost buckle. Usopp's hands tremble on his slingshot. They don't know why, but terror spikes through them. The instinctive dread of people whose sun has just been snuffed out. Just how much of their bravery was really borrowed from one idiot captain who refused to fall? And then Kaido answers the question for everyone. His dragon roar tears through the clouds and across the entire island. Straw Hat Luffy is dead! His voice rolls over the battlefield like a shockwave. Your so-called future pirate king died like an insect. The words are brutal, clear, and impossible to mishear. Big Mom doesn't waste a second. She bursts into laughter. Akko, the kind that makes the air feel heavier. So much for the new era, she sneers, hurling fused homie attacks at Kid and Law with renewed ferocity. The pressure spikes. Every swing from her feels like an execution, not a clash. Kid's teeth grind. Law's eyes narrow. Their ally, the chaos engine who split Kaido's attention, is gone. The war just tilted. The reaction split the battlefield in half. The beast pirates erupt, cheering with savage relief. For them, the world's strongest creature just proved it again. Morale surges. Attacks grow more reckless, more confident, as if Luffy's death has already guaranteed victory. For the samurai, it's the opposite. Swords pause mid-arc. Men who had tied Luffy to the legend of Joy Boy stare at the sky, faces pale beneath blood and ash. Was this another Odin? Another false dawn? Had the heavens abandoned Wano a second time? The environment answers with cruelty. The storm clouds above Onigashima refuse to part. Thunder growls, but no liberation follows. The island still floats under Kaido's control, a flying execution platform dragging itself toward the flower capital. This was supposed to be the night the sky opened. Instead, the ceiling of the world feels lower than ever, pressing down on every soul below. But what if this suffocating silence is only the beginning of something even worse for the new world? Straw Hats. Without a sun. Grief, rage, and the question of leadership. That silence doesn't stay silent for long. It hits the Straw Hats like a shockwave, a different kind of conqueror's haki that crushes the heart instead of the body. Luffy was the sun at the center of their little universe. The moment he disappears, gravity itself feels wrong. Because here's the core truth about this crew. Every single dream on that ship is pointed at the same horizon. Zoro's promise to become the world's strongest swordsman. Sanji's search for the All Blue. Nami's map of the entire world. Robin's quest for the true history. All of it was built on one assumption, that they would follow Luffy to the end. Remove him, and those dreams lose their guiding star in an instant. The first sign of the collapse comes from Zoro. Even half dead, bandaged, and bleeding from his rooftop wounds, the swordsman refuses to accept what that silent sky means. Rage and denial fuse into something terrifying. He tries to stand, to force his ruined body back toward the battlefield above, because if Luffy died to Kaido, then Zoro's blades have only one purpose left. One, just how much damage can a man do when he stops caring whether he survives the climb? Sanji feels it differently. He's in motion when the news hits, protecting allies, ferrying the wounded, juggling a dozen fires at once. His instinct is to sprint straight for Kaido and die trying, but people are screaming. Chopper is overwhelmed, Nami can't even stand. Sanji's entire identity is torn in two. The urge to avenge his captain and the duty to protect the family Luffy left behind. Every second he hesitates becomes its own private hell. Nami breaks. This is the man who walked into Arlong Park and promised to take her to the end of the world. The man who turned her stolen maps into a future instead of a prison. Now the sea thief who wanted to chart the entire world is staring at a horizon that no longer exists. Yet her climb attack shakes in her hands, not from fear of Kaido, but from the realization that the dream was never just a map. It was sailing that map with him, and in the middle of that emotional wreckage, a brutal, practical question appears. Who leads now? On paper, Zoro is a de facto first mate, the blade that stands beside the shield of their captain. Jinbei is a former warlord, an experienced captain with the calm to read a battlefield. Usopp, Frankie, Brook, Chopper, they all have roles, but none were built to replace the sun. This is where the crew's greatest strength becomes its biggest weakness. Their entire structure was designed around following Luffy's aura, his insane instincts, his ability to turn a hopeless war into a feast. Without that, the command chain doesn't smoothly shift upward. It shatters sideways. Habwaj, Zoro wants to charge the rooftop. Jinbei wants to consolidate and survive. Sanji wants both at once. Nami wants Luffy back, and nothing in this world can give her that. It mirrors Marineford in a twisted way. Back then, Luffy watched Ace die and completely broke. The war ended, time passed, and he rebuilt himself over 2 years. But what if there is no pause this time? No time skip, no Amazon Lily, no Rayleigh. The Straw Hats and their allies are forced to live Marineford's trauma in real time on a collapsing island with 2 emperors still trying to destroy the entire alliance. So the question becomes brutal and unavoidable. Do they stay together to avenge Luffy and carry his dream into a world he never reached? Or is this the first moment where some of them look at the raging battlefield, feel that crushing emptiness, and wonder if they even want to keep sailing without him? And if their answers don't match, does the crew itself survive the night? Worst generation. Without its wildcard, Kid, Law, and Zoro's desperate pivot. Up on the rooftop, that question never even has time to form. The answer is written in blood and thunder. Luffy isn't getting back up, and suddenly, the so-called worst generation is staring at a reality they were never supposed to face. 2 Yonko, 1 less captain, and no sun to rally around. In canon, Luffy's attacks are reckless, repetitive, and somehow always enough to drag the tempo back in the Alliance's favor. He eats Kaido's blows, he keeps talking, he keeps laughing, and everyone else orbits that insane gravity. But what if that gravity just vanished? The moment Luffy's body stops moving, all milk. The entire rooftop dynamic snaps. No more rubber distraction, no more Conqueror's Haki screaming in Kaido's face. Kid, Law, Zoro, and Killer are not 4 supernovas standing beside a future emperor anymore. They are 4 intruders trapped in the sky with the strongest creatures this era has produced. Law reacts first. Of course he does. He doesn't see a rival, he sees a corpse. His surgeon's brain reads the angle of Kaido's blow, the way Luffy's chest fails to rise, the way his aura flickers and then goes dark. This isn't another he'll bounce back moment. This is fatal. So, what does Trafalgar Law do when the heart of the Alliance flatlines? Does he burn stamina and room range to snatch Luffy's body and escape, guaranteeing his own retreat but abandoning the entire war? Or does he commit every last drop of his awakening to a single, suicidal offensive, trying to amputate Kaido's future from the world, even if it destroys his own body in the process? Kid's ego crashes into that choice like a steel meteor. He wanted to rival Luffy, to surpass him, to prove his own power by standing beside him at the summit. He never wanted to be the last one left. Luffy's death hits him like a personal insult from the universe. The first sign is that his metal constructs stop being flashy and start being vicious. Less show, more kill. He drags in the entire battlefield's debris, forcing his awakening further, condensing scrap into weapons heavy enough to bend the air around them. Just how much can a human body take when magnet powers are pushed past their limits? His lifespan, his sanity, his crew's future, all of it becomes collateral in his obsession with smashing a Yonko's skull. And then there is Zoro. Already half broken from blocking Hakai, already bleeding from 100 invisible cuts, suddenly holding 2 promises at once. Luffy's vow to free Wano, his own vow to never lose again. The crazy part was that this isn't a heroic power-up. This is something uglier. His killing intent spikes so sharply that even Kaido feels the tremors in his observation haki. Zoro stops talking. He stops caring about strategy. Every swing is a question with only one answer. Can this cut reach the dragon's neck? If his body shatters in the attempt, so be it. But the rooftop is only half the story. Pattern interrupt. Cut down through the floors to the live floor and the other battlefields. Thanks to his new ability, Queen is already crushing samurai with plague bullets, but when word spreads that Straw Hat Luffy has fallen, reactions split. Some fight harder, screaming his name, turning grief into raw fury. Others, those who only just believed in Joy Boy's return, hesitate. The aura of inevitable victory is gone. Kaido's men start laughing louder. Big Mom's homies crackle with glee. The entire fortress feels it. This is no longer hopeful rebellion. This is a desperate last stand. And as Zoro, Kid, Law, and Killer pivot from survive and stall to kill or die, every choice they make on that rooftop will decide whether Wano's story ends in liberation or in silence. Wano without Joy Boy, Momonosuke, Yamato, and a crushed prophecy down below that rooftop battlefield, the shock hits even harder. For Momonosuke, Luffy was never just an ally. Alright, he was the living proof that Oden's gamble on the future was real. In canon, every step of Momo's growth, from the terrified child on Punk Hazard to the dragon who holds Onigashima back from crashing, is tied to one belief, that Luffy, the man Zunisha whispers about, is Joy Boy and will liberate Wano. But what if that pillar is ripped away in a single heartbeat? The first sign is not a shout or a messenger, it is silence. The moment Luffy's heartbeat stops, the strange rhythm that once echoed through the ancient elephant is gone. Zunisha does not announce a great awakening. Instead, a low, mournful rumble rolls through the mist, and Momonosuke feels it like a quake in his chest. He reaches out with his voice, expecting that familiar, chaotic presence, and finds nothing. The skies above Wano stay heavy, Ikiha clogged with smoke and storm clouds that refuse to break. This is where his fragile confidence cracks. In canon, when Momo hears that Luffy has fallen, he still clings to the idea that Luffy will rise again, that the drums will return. Here, there is no second surge of Conqueror's haki, no impossible comeback. The Dragon Child, who was just starting to believe he could be Shogun now, has to process a different reality. The man he bet his clan, his country, and his entire childhood on has died, and the chains around Wano have not moved an inch. Yamato feels that same impact like a club to the head. Their entire rebellion is built on the idea that Luffy is the man Oden was waiting for, the one whose power and will would finish the journey Oden started. Just how much meaning did Yamato pour into that single promise? Enough to defy Kaido. Enough to wear his enemy's shackles as a symbol. Enough to fight his own crew. Now, Kaido has not only survived, he has personally destroyed that hope. Yamato's battle is still raging, but suddenly it feels small, like a single spark trying to burn down an iron fortress. And in the background, the prophecy itself starts to rot. Was Joy Boy's return misunderstood? Was Luffy an almost Joy Boy whose awakening never came? Or was this the one shot the world had, casually erased on a stormy rooftop? The crazy part was that every faction watching Wano, from the world government to the remnants of Whitebeard's era, built quiet expectations around that legend. And all of them are now staring at a void. So what fills it? Does the world wait for another candidate, another D to rise, while Kaido tightens his grip? Or does destiny simply fail here, on it proving that inherited will can be broken after all? That question slams hardest into Momonosuke. Without Joy Boy, he stands alone as the last Kozuki, a child in a dragon's body facing the strongest creature on the sea. Does he finally awaken his own courage, becoming a true dragon and a symbol of hope in his own right? Or does Kaido crush him, erase the Kozuki name, and turn Wano into a permanent, hopeless weapons factory feeding a world government that just watched its greatest future threat die? Because if Momonosuke cannot rise where Joy Boy fell, The story of Wano does not just end in darkness, it becomes a warning to the entire world about what happens when the heavens stay closed. And on that note, the next phase of this war becomes terrifying. How does Kaido, fresh from killing Luffy, I have reshaped the new world when no prophecy is left to challenge him? The world's strongest creature becomes a legend. Kaido after killing Luffy. And this is where the world's strongest creature stops being just a title and starts becoming a legend of pure terror. The moment he stands over Luffy's broken body on that rooftop, Kaido is not just a victor in a duel. He is the beast who killed the man the world quietly expected to become Pirate King. For him, this is confirmation, not surprise. In his worldview, the sea is a war that never ends and only monsters endure. So when Luffy's heartbeat finally goes silent, Kaido's ego hears one thing. The sea has judged, and once again, only the strongest survived. Kaido has always despised brats with dreams, but this kill is different. This is the boy who toppled Crocodile, Enies Lobby, Wang, and 2 Yonko territories. The rookie whose very existence caused tremors in the balance of power. Just how much more satisfying is it for Kaido to crush that specific hope under his kanabo? In his mind, Joy Boy was a fantasy. Inherited will is a joke, and any so-called savior is just another corpse waiting to happen. So he weaponizes the moment instantly. Kaido does not hide what happened. He drags Luffy's lifeless body to the edge of Onigashima, holds it up before Samurai, Beast Pirates, and Big Mom's crew, and declares that Joy Boy died here. He mocks the idea that a name or a D can defy the natural order. He dares the entire battlefield, and by extension, the entire new world, to produce another challenger. Luffy's corpse becomes a banner of fear, onto a living warning turned into a dead symbol that says, "This is what happens when you dream above your station." And standing beside him, Big Mom understands the message perfectly. With Luffy gone, the immediate pressure on their alliance evaporates. No Gear 5th. No wildcard awakening to destroy their plans. But what if removing that threat actually makes their partnership more dangerous? Now they can refocus on their original goal, crushing the remaining worst generation, finding the road poneglyphs, and claiming the One Piece. Yet, under the surface, their old grudges still burn. 2 monsters, 2 egos, 1 treasure. The crazy part was that Luffy's death does not heal that fracture. It just delays the inevitable betrayal. On a mythic level, this act rewrites the era. If Whitebeard's death at Marineford signaled the end of the old guard, Kaido killing Luffy is the execution of the era's hope itself. He is no longer just a Yonko. He becomes the executioner of dreams, the proof that even the brightest future Pirate King candidate can be destroyed before his awakening, before his legend is complete. But as Kaido roars his victory to the stormy sky, the first sign of the wider fallout appears far away. Transponder snails crackle in Marineford. Cypherpole agents whisper in panic. The world government realizes someone else just did their most dangerous job for them, and that terrifyingly, the balance they wanted to control might now be slipping out of their hands entirely. When the world loses its future. Pirate King, Marines, Gorosei, and CP0 react on Onigashima. The first ones to process what just happened aren't pirates or samurai. It's CP0. Armed, their mission was clear from the start of this war. Prevent the Nika fruit's full awakening at all costs. Eliminate the boy if necessary. Cut off the future before it can stand. And now, the moment Kaido's kanabo crushes Luffy's skull and his heartbeat falls silent, the masked agents just stop. The greatest threat to the world government's rule has been erased, but not by their hand, and not in a way they can control. One of them quietly closes the transponder snail. Another runs the numbers. Luffy's growth rate, his conqueror's haki, his alliance network, the way his very presence warped the battlefield's aura. All of that potential is gone. But what if the price is that the world's strongest creature just proved he can destroy the man destined to surpass him? Just how much more terrifying does Kaido look to the people whose job is to manage the balance of the entire sea? That unease travels through the line and hits Mary Joy's like a shockwave. In the holy city, the Gorosei sit beneath the great map of the world as the report comes in. The Gomu no Mi user, the one with the suspicious drum-like heartbeat, has been killed before a confirmed awakening. For a second, there is relief. The legend of Nika is pushed back into the shadows. The sun god will not dance on their carefully arranged chessboard, but the crazy part was that relief is immediately poisoned by a new anxiety. Kaido stands on a fortress the Marines cannot enter. In a closed country they cannot invade, having just executed the one pirate with the will and ability to topple him. So if this is what he does to the man marked by fate, what happens when the Yonko system tilts even further in his favor? One emperor dead in Marineford already shook the world. One future emperor dead in Wano threatens to freeze it. Down in Marine HQ, the mood is completely different depending on which room you enter. In the strategy chamber, Sakazuki stares at the map of Wano like it's a wound. Is this the opening he wanted? A war-torn island, a Yonko bleeding from 100 cuts, allies in disarray? Or is this a warning carved into the sky itself that even the next Pirate King candidate was not enough? Kizaru leans back, joking less than usual, calculating light speed entry routes and just how much risk it would take to pierce a fortress ruled by the creature who killed Straw Hat Luffy. Pattern interrupt. Outside those walls, regular Marines hear the same news and react with something the Gorosei never planned for: unease. Some remember Marineford watching that close, reckless rookie charge at the strongest forces in the world just to save his brother. Others saw the broadcast of Whole Cake and Wano, the way his defiance sent tremors through pirate crews and citizens alike. To the brass, Luffy was a problem solved. To the rank and file, his death feels like a light going out. Across the seas, the vacuum forms instantly. With Luffy removed from the race, the path to the Pirate King narrows and hardens. Kid and Law no longer have a wild card drawing fire away from them. Blackbeard watches from the shadows, seeing a Yonko who has proven he can crush destiny itself. Shanks, the man who once bet on that small rubber boy, Awa now has to decide whether this is the moment to step forward or the moment to disappear entirely. Because when the future Pirate King dies before his awakening, the era doesn't calm down, it coils. And the next move, whether from Kaido, the world government, or another monster waiting in the dark, is about to decide what replaces the dream Luffy left behind. Inherited will in a world without Luffy, Zoro, Sabo, and the next D, the era coils. But it doesn't wait. The moment word spreads that the future Pirate King died on a steel rooftop in Wano, the core promise of One Piece itself is put on trial. That people's dreams never die. That inherited will outlives the body. But what if the man who embodied that idea more than anyone falls before reaching Laugh-Tale? Ouch. Just how much pressure does that put on the next generation of D to prove that the story's central law still holds on a battlefield ruled by monsters like Kaido? The first sign that the world refuses to let Luffy's dream die would be Zoro. He was always the right hand, never the voice, but losing Luffy in front of him turns that quiet loyalty into something razor sharp. Zoro has already taken on Luffy's pain at Thriller Bark. Here, he takes on Luffy's role. The crazy part was that his evolution wouldn't be flashy. It would be brutal. A grim, pragmatic captain standing in blood on Onigashima, forcing the shattered Straw Hats to move, to fight, to escape. His sword is no longer only pointed at the title of strongest swordsman. It's pointed at a future where Wano is freed because Luffy promised it would be. In this world, Tio Zoro's "I'll never lose again" shifts meaning. It becomes, "I won't let what he died for be destroyed." He would cut down anyone, ally, or enemy who tries to surrender that promise. The aura around the crew hardens. No more carefree meals, no more easy laughs. The Straw Hats become a lean, wounded warband carrying a ghost on their ship. Far away, the shock hits another brother. News of Marineford shattered Luffy when Ace died. Now the roles invert. Sabo hears that Luffy fell to the world's strongest creature, and the revolutionary army feels the tremors instantly. Does this break him, or does this awaken something even more dangerous? Dragon's war against the celestial dragon suddenly has a new fuel. The world government let Kaido exist, let this system destroy two sons of Dadan. Thanks to his new ability with the Mera Mera no Mi, Ultra Kenos, Sabo becomes the flame that refuses to go out where Luffy fell, turning his grief into open, uncompromising revolution. But inherited will in One Piece has never belonged to just one person. Law, with his quiet sense of justice and the Op Op no Mi, understands more than anyone how unfair the world is. Luffy's death could tilt him from reluctant ally into a surgeon of the new era, using his ability to dismantle Yonko systems and the government piece by piece. Kid, on the other hand, might twist the will of D into something darker, a violent interpretation of freedom that answers Kaido's rule with pure destruction. And then there are the unexpected vessels. Momonosuke, carrying Odin's will and Wano's prophecy, steps into a symbolic role. Not the next Pirate King, but the living proof that Joy Boy's failure here doesn't erase the promise to open the borders. Yamato, who worshipped Odin and believed in Luffy, could become the wandering banner of his dream, sailing under no flag but his straw hat. So what happens when Joy Boy's chosen vessel dies early? Does his will shatter into dozens of smaller fires? Zoro's ruthless leadership? Sabo's burning revolution? Law's surgical justice? Kid's chaos? Momo and Yamato's guardianship of Wano, creating an era of scattered, uncontrollable rebellion across the entire world? Or does all that rage, grief, and inherited promise condense behind one new, terrifyingly focused successor who steps out of Luffy's shadow and declares a different kind of war on the Age of Monsters? Because if the sun god's light is snuffed out on the rooftop, the next question isn't whether a new dawn comes, it's what shape that dawn takes, and who dares to claim it in a world that just watched its brightest star fall. A darker new world, pirate era, Blackbeard, and the shadow of a dead Joy Boy. And that's where the entire sea starts to twist, because the moment the world realizes the brightest star really fell on that rooftop, the new world doesn't calm down, it mutates. The first sign is Blackbeard. This is the man who waited decades for one stolen opportunity. Luffy's death hands him 10 at once, a future rival erased, a budding emperor candidate gone before his true awakening. Blackbeard would smell that, opening instantly and move like a vulture through fresh tremors in the era. He targets ex-allies, broken alliances, and every island that once whispered the Straw Hat name with hope. Just how much does a dead Joy Boy help the strongest opportunists in the sea? Imagine Teach swooping into territories that expected Luffy's flag to rise next. Fishman Island losing its promised protector. Dressrosa's fragile peace shaken. Even Alabasta watching the horizon and seeing only darkness. Thanks to his new ability to weaponize fear itself, Blackbeard doesn't just steal land, he steals faith. He recruits shattered pirates who lost their captain chasing Luffy's dream and tells them the age of romantic freedom is over. The war for the throne becomes pure predation. On the other side of the board stands Shanks, the man who bet his arm, his hat, and his pride that Luffy would change the seas now has to live with that bet failing in the ugliest way possible. But does Shanks snap and finally move as the most active, ruthless emperor on the battlefield, hunting Blackbeard and Kaido before they can fully destroy the era? Or does he stare at that empty straw hat and decide the age really belongs to monsters, withdrawing with his crew while the world, government, and emperors tear each other apart? This is where the pirate landscape curdles. One less major contender doesn't mean less conflict. It means the remaining giants stretch their aura over the entire new world. Smaller crews see Joy Boy die and either give up on the One Piece as a fairy tale or go berserk, chasing shortcuts. Alliances with warlords, drugged soldiers, suicidal raids into Yonko waters. The seas that were already a battlefield become a slaughterhouse with no guiding ideal, only power. Whitebeard's death at Marineford unleashed chaos, but it carried a promise. The One Piece is real. That dying declaration turned the Great Pirate Era into its wildest, most hopeful phase. Luffy's earlier death does the opposite. It doesn't end the era, it corrupts it. The dream of freedom still exists, but now it's wrapped in tragedy and doubt. The D initial becomes less a beacon and more a curse everyone fears to inherit. And as this darker new world takes shape, the camera has to swing back one more time to Wano, because under that permanently choked sky with Kaido's shadow fixed over the flower capital, one last question waits like a loaded cannon. Does Wano stay crushed forever under the strongest creature's heel? Or does a final Wawa desperate stand rise from the ashes of Luffy's failed rebellion and threaten to shatter even this twisted new era? Wano's final outcome, crushed, liberated, or forever haunted by a fallen pirate. So what happens to a country that bet everything on a dead pirate? There are only 3 roads left for Wano now, and each one is brutal. Total failure, where Kaido's rule hardens into an iron cage. A Pyrrhic victory, where the Alliance wins the war but loses the heart that started it. Or a haunted stalemate in Inuit where the chains break, yet the shadow of Joy Boy's corpse never leaves the battlefield. The first sign of a twisted victory would be the sky. Kaido falls, the clouds rip apart, and sunlight finally crashes down over the flower capital. But what if that light lands on a grave instead of a hero? In this path, rage and grief become the Alliance's last weapon. Zoro tears his body apart, pushing past his limits. Law burns his lifespan with room after room. Kid overloads his metal constructs until his own arms bleed, and Yamato throws their entire aura into one last clash with the man who called them a disappointment. They win. They destroy the dragon that killed Joy Boy. Yet the cost is catastrophic. Samurai litter the battlefield, Kid's crew is shattered, Law collapses on the spot, and Zoro never fully recovers. The moment the drums of war finally stop, there is no cheering. Only exhausted sobbing and the silent shape of Luffy's body wrapped in a tattered straw hat flag. In that world, Yamato and Momonosuke become inheritors of a dream they never asked to carry. Yamato guards the borders as Wano's last wall, clinging to the pages of Oden's journal and Luffy's memory. Momonosuke rules as shogun, but every festival is a reminder that the strongest light who tried to free them died before seeing a single firework. Wano is liberated, yet forever haunted by the pirate who failed, and still changed everything. But what if the rage isn't enough? The darker road is the one where Kaido crushes the rebellion completely. No miracle awakening, no last-second turnaround, just overwhelming power, grinding hope into dust. In this outcome, the alliance breaks, not the emperor. Momonosuke is executed in the flower capital as a warning. The straw hats are scattered, some captured, some forced to flee, and Onigashima becomes a permanent fortress hanging over a silent, terrified nation. Years pass. Children in Wano whisper a different story. Not of a laughing rubber man who freed them, but of the monster who killed Joy Boy on the rooftop and ruled unchallenged. Thanks to his new ability to weaponize fear itself, Kaido turns Wano into the cautionary tale of the entire new world. Then there is the stalemate. Kaido falls through combined sacrifice, but Big Mom escapes, the world government tightens its noose, and Wano opens its borders into an era of constant war. Yamato and Momonosuke lead, yet every step forward walks over Luffy's grave. The crazy part was that even in this freedom, the country never stops asking one question. Was this really the future Joy Boy died for? Because as the camera snaps back from those distant futures to the present rooftop, the answer to Wano's fate still hangs on one impossible idea. Does Luffy's will really end here? Or does something far older than any prophecy refuse to stay dead? What Luffy's death really changes? Themes, legacy, and your version of the story. The moment he falls for real, the entire story tilts. The rooftop doesn't become the birthplace of Nika's awakening. It becomes the grave of the man who was supposed to wear that sun like a crown. That single change sends tremors through everything. The straw hats don't just lose a captain, the world loses its loudest, dumbest, strongest symbol of freedom. On Onigashima, morale doesn't crack, it shatters. Zoro wakes to a reality where there is no rubber idiot to follow. Sanji has no one to throw into danger with a smile. Aini and Nami's maps suddenly point toward a sea without the man who promised to carry them. Down below, the Alliance stops fighting for sunrise and starts fighting out of raw, animal refusal to accept that this is it. Up top, Kaido's myth reaches a new, twisted awakening. This is no longer the creature who could not be killed. This is the creature who destroyed Joy Boy. The first sign of the new era isn't a drumbeat of liberation, but the quiet, horrified understanding that the world's strongest creature just killed the future emperor. The government feared so much that CP0 was ready to die to stop his ability from awakening. Wano's prophecy doesn't vanish, it mutates. The borders are still closed. Momonosuke still hears the voices of the country. Yamato still clings to Oden's logbook. Okay, but what if the Joy Boy they were waiting for is now a corpse on a shattered rooftop? Inherited will still exist, but it becomes fractured, scattered between Zoro's promise, Momonosuke's duty, Yamato's obsession, and Sabo's rage. Freedom is no longer guaranteed a champion. Every act of rebellion suddenly looks fragile, costly, and terrifyingly easy to snuff out. Just how much hope was silently pinned on one reckless rubber pirate becomes obvious the moment he's gone. The balance of power doesn't just tilt, it collapses into something darker. Kaido's aura as a warlord of the New World becomes legend. Big Mom stands beside the dragon who killed Joy Boy. The Marines and the world government breathe out in relief and dread at the same time, knowing the threat of Nika is gone. But realizing they now face emperors who have proven they can kill destiny itself. And that is the real point of this timeline. It doesn't just power up characters, it exposes how thin the line of hope really was and how terrifying it would be if it snapped before it could fully awaken. So now the question passes to you, who rises in Luffy's place, if anyone? Is this a Zoro-led Straw Hat revenge saga across a ruined new world, a revolutionary army story where Sabo becomes a burning answer to his brother's death? Or does an entirely new generation grow up chasing the legend of the pirate who died on Onigashima? Drop your version of this timeline in the comments. Who lives, who falls, and who carries the will of D next? Also, tell which what if should come next. What if Ace survived Marineford? What if Blackbeard never got the Yami no Mi? Or something even wilder? If deep dive alternate histories like this are the kind of One Piece war you want to keep exploring, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next tremor.